The first time I returned Celeste Arden's silver laptop, I lost my degree, my scholarship, and every person who had ever called me promising. The second time, I returned it while her grade hacking account was still glowing on the screen in the middle of Professor Hale's class. That was the difference between the life in which I was destroyed and the life in which I finally watched the right girl panic. In my first life, the university's disciplinary committee said the evidence was unfortunate but conclusive. The grade changes had been made from my apartment's internet connection. The altered records had been accessed through a device registered under my student ID. My own marks had risen while 3 of my closest academic competitors had suddenly dropped. Celeste sat beside me at the hearing in a cream cardigan, crying into a tissue and whispering that she could not believe I had betrayed everyone. She even squeezed my hand under the table, as though she were comforting me instead of measuring how quickly I was sinking. I told them I had borrowed her laptop because mine had broken. I told them she had insisted I keep it for 2 nights. I told them I had never seen the hidden administrator dashboard found in the browser history. Nobody listened. Celeste was the class representative, the dean's scholarship ambassador, the student who remembered birthdays and brought homemade muffins to study sessions. I was the quiet girl who worked evenings at a grocery store and guarded every decimal point on my transcript because one failed semester would cost me everything. When the committee expelled me, my mother sold her wedding jewelry to hire a solicitor we could not afford. The appeal failed. My mother became ill from stress. My younger brother delayed university to help pay rent. 2 years later, exhausted after a double shift at a call center, I stepped into the road while reading another rejection email from a law firm. I remember headlights, rain, and the strange thought that Celeste had not only stolen my future, she had made me spend my final second apologizing for being in the way. Then I opened my eyes to the dry hum of fluorescent lights, Professor Hale writing regression equations across a lecture screen, and Celeste leaning over from the next seat with the same bright smile she had worn 3 days before my ruin. "Nora," she whispered, tapping the silver laptop between us, "you can give it back after class. I need it tonight." My hands went cold. On the screen, behind a minimized spreadsheet, a black browser tab pulsed with a tiny red notification. I knew that icon. I had seen it enlarged in the committee's evidence pack. It belonged to the university's restricted grade management portal. In my first life, I had closed the laptop without noticing it. This time, I looked at Celeste, looked at the projected screen at the front of the room, and understood that death had returned me to the exact 10 minutes in which she believed she had already won. I did not gasp. I did not accuse her. That would have been satisfying for perhaps 3 seconds and fatal for the rest of my life. Celeste's greatest weapon had never been technology. It had been preparation. She arranged every betrayal so the victim reacted first and looked unstable afterward. In my first life, when I realized the evidence pointed to me, I had confronted her in the student lounge. She widened her eyes, let me raise my voice, then secretly recorded the last half of the conversation. By sunset, a clip of me saying, "I know you did this," had circulated through the cohort with no context except Celeste's caption, "I'm scared she's having some kind of breakdown." I would not give her that scene again. I lowered my gaze and made my face blink, the way I had learned to do while customers screamed at me over expired coupons. Around us, 32 students typed notes, clicked pens, and pretended not to check messages under the desk. Professor Hale had just begun explaining the difference between prediction and causation. The irony was almost cruel enough to make me laugh. Celeste nudged the laptop closer. "You finished your report, right?" she asked. Her voice sounded casual, but her thumb rubbed the edge of her phone case. She always did that when nervous. I remembered it from the hearing, from the appeal, from the moment she lied about never knowing my home Wi-Fi password. "Almost," I said. "I just need to upload it." Her smile tightened. She needed the laptop back before I opened the wrong tab. In the first timeline, I had rushed the upload, shut the lid, and handed it over. She had then gone to the library, deleted the visible traces, and reported suspicious activity on my account the following morning. That report made her look like the cautious witness who discovered my crime. This time, I clicked the assignment portal slowly, letting her wait. The black tab remained open. A number appeared beside its icon. Four unsaved grade changes. My heartbeat struck so hard I felt it in my teeth. Celeste leaned nearer. Actually, I need to leave early, she whispered. Can you just give it to me now? Of course, I said, and then I did something so ordinary that she did not understand it until it was too late. I raised my hand. Professor Hale stopped mid-sentence. Yes, Nora? Celeste needs her laptop back, I said, lifting the silver device with both hands. But I think I accidentally opened something I'm not authorized to access. Could you please tell me what to do before I touch anything else? The room did not go silent immediately. First came a few keyboard clicks, then a cough, then the squeak of a chair as Celeste twisted toward me. After that, silence landed all at once. Professor Hale was not a dramatic man. He was 60, narrow-shouldered, and famous for wearing ties patterned with tiny mathematical symbols. Even when a fire alarm interrupted an exam the previous term, he had merely looked at the ceiling and said, "That is statistically inconvenient." But when he walked down the aisle and saw the black tab, his face changed so sharply that everyone noticed. He did not touch the keyboard. He did not ask me to explain. He bent close enough to read the account name in the top corner, then straightened and said, "Nobody leaves this room." Celeste laughed. It was a small, breathless sound, much too bright. "Professor, that's my personal laptop." Nora probably clicked a phishing link. Professor Hale turned his head. "This is not a phishing link." "Then she logged in somehow," Celeste said. "She's had my computer for days." There it was, the first stone in the wall she had built around me. In my old life, I had not recognized the pattern until the wall was complete. Now I could see every brick before she placed it. Professor Hale asked whose account was open. I looked at the top right corner of the screen. The display name read A. Vale, Academic System Support. It was not Celeste's name. That had been one of the reasons the committee believed her. The account belonged to Adrian Vale, a graduate assistant in the registrar's office and Celeste's older cousin. In the first timeline, he resigned before the investigation and vanished overseas. The university said it could not determine how I obtained his password. Celeste placed a hand over her mouth. "That's a staff account," she said, performing shock effraction too early. Professor Hale noticed. "So did I." "You recognize the name?" he asked.
No.
I recognize the portal. Everyone knows staff use it." She reached for the laptop. "Let me close it. There could be private student information." I moved the device toward Professor Hale instead. Celeste's fingers closed on empty air. A ripple passed through the class. It was a tiny movement, but in a room full of students who had spent 2 years watching Celeste manage every group project, every social event, and every rumor, it felt like someone had pulled a curtain aside. "Do not touch the machine," Professor Hale said. His voice was quiet now, which made it more dangerous. He called Campus Technology Services on the classroom phone, requested an emergency lock on the account, and asked security to send an officer. Celeste stood so quickly her chair struck the desk behind her. "This is ridiculous." She borrowed my laptop. "Whatever she did on it has nothing to do with me." Professor Hale looked at her. "Sit down. I have a medical appointment." "Sit down, Ms. Arden." The authority in his tone stopped her, but it did not calm her. She lowered herself into the chair beside me, breathing through her nose. Her phone lit up beneath the desk. I saw a message preview before she turned it over. "Adrian, why is the session still active?" She noticed me noticing. For 1 second, the sweetness vanished from her face. What looked back at me was not fear. It was calculation. The first pattern break came when the projector flickered. Everyone assumed Professor Hale had switched displays, but the laptop was still wirelessly connected from my presentation earlier that morning. I had forgotten to disconnect it. Or perhaps the universe, having watched Celeste win once, had decided subtlety was overrated. The black portal filled the enormous screen behind Professor Hale. 32 students saw the same dashboard at once. Student names in the left column, current grades in the center, edited grades in red, and a pending changes panel waiting for confirmation. My name was at the top. Original mark, 78. Pending mark, 94. Below mine were Isaac Chin, Priya Nair, and Miriam Okafor, all scholarship candidates. Their pending marks had been lowered by between 9 and 14 points. A collective sound moved through the room. Not quite a gasp and not quite a word. Isaac stood. What is that? Priya's face drained of color. Miriam looked at me, and the pain in her expression hit harder than any accusation because in my first life she had trusted me until the evidence became impossible to ignore. Celeste shot out of her chair again and lunged toward the laptop. Professor Hale caught the lid before she could slam it shut. Security is coming, he said. Step away. You're displaying confidential records. Celeste cried. Nora did this. Why is everyone staring at me? That question changed the room. Until then, most of them had been staring at the screen. Now they stared at her because she had told them to. She realized it too late. I remained seated. My palms were damp, but my voice came out steady. Professor, I don't know how that account was opened. I have not changed any grades. Please preserve the screen, the browser session, and the device exactly as they are. Celeste whipped toward me. Listen to her. She sounds rehearsed. I am being careful, I said, because this could destroy someone's life. Her eyes flashed. She knew I was not speaking generally. Professor Hale asked when I received the laptop. I told him Monday evening, after mine failed during our statistics lab. Celeste immediately interrupted. I lent it to her because I felt sorry for her. Did you give her your login password? He asked. No. Did you use the laptop after lending it to her? Obviously not. That was her first provable lie. In my reborn life, I had spent the previous 2 days preparing for the possibility that I could not expose the portal cleanly. I had photographed the laptop each time I stopped using it, recording the clock in the frame. At 2:13 that morning, while I slept, the webcam indicator had flashed. I woke, pretended not to notice, and used my phone to record Celeste remotely controlling the device through a hidden access program. I had not understood all the technical details, but I understood enough to know that her statement, obviously not, had just opened the door I needed. Campus security arrived with a technology officer named Layla Moreno, a compact woman with silver glasses and the impatient posture of someone who had been interrupted during lunch. She unplugged the classroom projector, photographed the screen, and placed a tamper seal over the laptop's ports. Then she asked everyone to remain seated while she checked whether the active session could be preserved without altering data. Celeste began crying. Not loudly. She was too skilled for that. One tear slipped down her cheek while she stared at the desk, creating the exact image of a generous friend betrayed by the girl she had tried to help. Several students shifted uncomfortably. Old instincts stirred in me. I wanted to explain everything at once, to pour out the future I remembered, the hearing, my mother's jewelry, the wet road, the headlights. But truth delivered too quickly can look like desperation. I kept my mouth closed. Layla read the session information and asked, "Who is Adrian Vale?" Celeste hesitated for half a second. "My cousin." The room changed again. Isaac swore under his breath. Professor Hale's jaw tightened. "You said you did not recognize the name." "I didn't realize it was that Adrian," she replied. "It's a common name." "His surname is Vale," Miriam said. "Your mother's maiden name is Vale. You posted about his promotion last month." Celeste turned toward her with injured disbelief. "Why are you attacking me?" Miriam sat back, but the question had landed. Layla asked Celeste whether her cousin had ever used the laptop. "Maybe once," Celeste said. "Months ago." Layla looked at the screen. This session was authenticated at 10:42 last night. Celeste's crying stopped. Not gradually. 1 second there were tears. The next, her face was dry and still. Then Nora must have contacted him. "I have never spoken to Adrian Vale," I said. "Check my phone, email, and messages." "You could have deleted them. Then check the university server." Celeste looked at me as though I had stepped off a map she had drawn herself. In the first life, shame had made me defensive. I refused to hand over my phone until a solicitor was present, which the committee interpreted as suspicious. This time, I unlocked it immediately and placed it on the desk. "You can preserve it too," I told Layla. "I consent to a forensic review." Layla nodded once. Celeste did not offer hers. Professor Hale noticed that as well. Ms. Arden, he said, please provide your phone. You can't demand that. I am not demanding it. I am asking whether you will voluntarily preserve evidence connected to a suspected breach. My phone has private things. Priya folded her arms. So does Nora's. The class was no longer a passive audience. Celeste had spent years making herself the center of every room. Now, for the first time, the room had become a jury she could not direct. Layla asked me to describe exactly what I had done since borrowing the laptop. I began with the truth and nothing more. My own computer had frozen during Monday's lab. Celeste offered hers before I asked. She insisted I take it home, because she had a tablet. She sent me the password in a disappearing message, then deleted the message from our chat. I used the laptop only for my research report and the course portal. I noticed nothing unusual until that morning, when the restricted tab appeared after I woke the device. Celeste interrupted again. She's lying about the disappearing message. I opened my phone's notification archive. Her message remained there even though the chat itself showed nothing. Password is Celswins4. Don't tell anyone, lol. A few students exchanged looks. The password alone did not prove hacking, but it destroyed Celeste's claim that I had accessed the machine without her credentials. She could have fabricated that screenshot, Celeste said. Layla replied before I could. It is not a screenshot. It is a system notification record. Celeste's lips parted. I continued. At 1:58 that morning, I finished working, photographed the laptop closed on my desk, and went to bed. At 2:13, the webcam light woke me. I had not touched the device. I showed Layla the video from my phone. The footage was dark and grainy, but clear enough to show the laptop opening by itself, the cursor moving, a remote access window flashing, and the black portal loading. My own hands were visible under the blanket at the edge of the frame because I had deliberately angled the camera to include them. A chill moved through the room as everyone watched. Celeste stared at me. You filmed yourself staging it. Then the device logs will show that, I said. They will also show the remote connection source. Layla took my phone and examined the metadata. Recorded at 2:14 a.m. continuous file.
No visible edits.
She looked at Celeste. Do you use remote desktop software? No. Does your cousin? How would I know? At that moment, Celeste's phone vibrated again. She had turned it face down, but the vibration rattled against the metal desk. Layla asked her to silence it. Celeste grabbed it too quickly. The screen unlocked with her face, revealing a message thread before she could swipe away. Adrian, log out now. Delete the task file. I saw it. So did Professor Hale, standing directly behind her. He said, put the phone down. Celeste clutched it to her chest. You cannot read my messages without permission. You displayed the message yourself, he said. Her gaze darted toward the door. Security Officer Daniel Cho moved in front of it. Nobody touched her. Nobody needed to. For the first time, Celeste was trapped not by force, but by the simple fact that every exit required her to explain something she could not explain. Then she changed tactics. That was what she always did when charm failed. She found a larger fear and pushed everyone toward it. Celeste stood slowly, lowered her phone, and looked around the class with trembling dignity.
Fine, she said.
You all want the truth? Nora has been obsessed with rankings for months. She knew Priya, Isaac, and Miriam were ahead of her for the research scholarship. She asked me whether Adrian could fix administrative errors. I thought she was joking. Last night, she called me crying and said she had found a way into the system. I begged her to stop. The lie was elegant because it incorporated every exposed fact. Adrian was her cousin because I had asked her to use him. The laptop belonged to her because I needed access. The remote session existed because I orchestrated it. The messages were warnings, not instructions. A few faces shifted again. Celeste saw the doubt and pressed harder. Why do you think she is so calm? Why did she photograph the laptop? Why was she filming before the account opened? Because this is a setup. She pointed at me. She planned this entire performance. In my first life, that accusation would have shattered me. In this one, It was the accusation I had been waiting for. "You're right," I said. The room inhaled. Even Celeste looked surprised. I stood for the first time and faced her. I did prepare. Because I remembered what happened the last time you borrowed my charger, copied files from my computer, and blamed a virus. I remembered when Miriam's lab report disappeared after you used her account. I remembered when Isaac's anonymous complaint became public even though only the class representative had access to the feedback folder. I did not know you were changing grades, but I knew something was wrong when you insisted I take your laptop and then deleted the password message. So, I documented the device. That is not evidence of hacking. It is evidence that I did not trust you. Celeste's expression hardened. I continued before she could interrupt. And since you say I called you crying last night, show the call log. I deleted it. The provider record will still exist. You used an app. Which app? I don't remember. Then show any message where I asked about Adrian fixing grades. You deleted them. The server may still have them. Each answer forced her into a smaller space. She could invent invisible evidence, but invisible evidence could not survive forensic review. Professor Hale asked me why I suspected her strongly enough to film the laptop. I could not tell him I had already lived the consequences. Instead, I gave him the one explanation that was both true and possible. Because last semester my exam file was replaced with a blank document after Celeste offered to submit it for me. I blamed myself. I decided not to make that mistake twice. Celeste flinched. That incident had happened in both lives, but I had never confronted her about it. Now she knew I had been counting longer than she realized. Layla began a live preservation of the laptop while the class watched from a distance. She explained that she would not open unrelated files, but she could record active processes, network connections, and authentication tokens. The portal session showed Adrian Vale's staff account, authenticated through a mobile approval request at 10:42 p.m. The laptop's remote access log showed incoming connections at 10:39 p.m. to 12 a.m. and 8:47 a.m. The source identifier matched a device labeled Celeste iPad. Celeste said device names could be forged. Layla agreed. Then she checked the university network and found that the 847 connection originated from the campus cafe Wi-Fi. I remembered that morning perfectly. Celeste had sat in the cafe with her rose-colored tablet while I attended an early tutorial across campus. There would be cameras. There would be receipts. There would be witnesses. Celeste knew it too. Someone could have stolen my tablet, she said. Priya blinked. You had it at breakfast. You showed me a video. Then someone cloned it. In the 10 minutes between showing me the video and walking here? Celeste spun toward her. Why are you so desperate to blame me? Priya's voice shook, but she held her ground. Because my grade is sitting on that screen with 14 points removed. That sentence split the room cleanly. Until then, Celeste had tried to make the incident about me. My ambition, my device access, my alleged setup. Priya reminded everyone that there were victims beyond me. Isaac stepped forward next. Mine too. Miriam opened the course app and compared her official grade to the pending change. And mine. More students checked their records. The Black Portal's recent activity panel listed 27 modifications across 6 courses. Some were pending. Others had already been committed. A student near the back, Elena Park, whispered that her anatomy practical grade had dropped last week without explanation. Another said his appeal had been denied because the system showed no error. The class erupted. Professor Hale ordered everyone to remain calm, but outrage moved faster than authority. Celeste's carefully polished reputation began cracking under the weight of names. She had not only targeted scholarship rivals. She had been trading favors, raising grades for friends, lowering marks for students who opposed her in committee elections, and altering attendance records for people who paid her. The dashboard was not one crime. It was a market. Layla found a spreadsheet hidden behind the portal tab. Columns were labeled initials, course, request, price, status. Beside some names were amounts. Beside others were words like vote, silence, owes me. My initials, NL, were followed by frame, final. Celeste saw the row at the same moment I did. She stopped breathing. The class did not become loud this time. Silence was worse. 32 people stared at the word that had reduced my first life to ash. Frame final. Celeste moved before anyone could stop her. She snatched a metal water bottle from the desk and swung it toward the laptop. Officer Cho caught her wrist. The bottle struck the floor, burst open, and rolled beneath the seats, spilling water across shoes and backpacks. Someone screamed. Celeste struggled once, then froze as if she had awakened inside her own body. I panicked, she said. There are private notes in that spreadsheet. Layla placed the laptop inside an evidence sleeve. You attempted to destroy suspected evidence. It is my property. That does not give you the right to destroy evidence during an active security incident. Celeste looked around for sympathy. She found shock. Even her closest friend, Tessa Moore, had backed away. In my first life, Tessa testified that I had asked how to change grades. She cried while doing it and said she wished she could protect me, but had to tell the truth. Now I watched her calculate whether loyalty to Celeste was still profitable. Her eyes moved from the sealed laptop to Celeste's phone to the security officer. Then she raised her hand. I need to say something, she whispered. Celeste turned slowly. Tessa, don't. You told me it was just attendance corrections. Do not do this here. You said Adrian gave you access because the registrar was behind on appeals. You said you were helping people. Celeste's face went white. Tessa started crying for real, with blotchy cheeks and uneven breaths. She made me collect student numbers, she told Professor Hale. I thought she was fixing mistakes. Then she asked me to send screenshots of Nora's scholarship ranking. I didn't know she was going to frame her. Liar, Celeste said. The word came out flat and vicious. Tessa recoiled. I felt no gratitude toward her. In the first timeline, she had helped build the case against me. Perhaps she had known less than Celeste, but she had known enough to choose safety over truth. Still, her confession mattered. Professor Hale asked whether she had messages. Tessa nodded and handed over her phone immediately. There were dozens. Celeste, get Nora to take the laptop. Celeste, make sure she signs into the portal from home. Celeste, Adrian says the audit will tag her IP. Celeste, after Friday, act shocked. The final message had been sent that morning. Celeste, if anything goes wrong, say Nora threatened us. Tessa covered her face. I'm sorry, she said, though she was looking at me. I wanted to tell her that sorry was a small word for the grave she had helped dig. Instead, I said, preserve everything. My voice sounded older than I was. Maybe part of me still stood on that rainy road, carrying two lives at once. The university moved us into separate rooms, but Celeste's family arrived before the preliminary interviews ended. Her mother swept into the building wearing a navy suit and the expression of a woman accustomed to converting outrage into policy. Her father, Graham Arden, chaired the University Foundation's scholarship committee and had donated the Glass Study Center where half our classes were held. In my first life, I believed the committee rejected my appeal because the digital evidence was strong. Later, a clerk accidentally emailed my solicitor an internal memo showing that Graham had called 3 committee members before the hearing. The memo disappeared from the case file the next day. I had died, without proving what it meant. Now, through the glass wall of the conference room, I watched him grip Dean Marlowe's shoulder and speak close to his ear. Celeste stood between her parents, no longer crying. Her mother brushed imaginary dust from her cardigan. Her father never looked at me. Within 20 minutes, University Council announced that all students would be sent home and instructed not to discuss the incident publicly while an independent review was arranged. Independent. That word had buried me once. I stood. Will the laptop remain with the technology officer? Council replied that evidence handling procedures were confidential. Will Professor Hale's photographs and the classroom display be preserved? Ms. Lin, please allow us to conduct our work. Will the affected students receive written confirmation that their grades are frozen? You are not in a position to dictate the investigation. The room cooled. Celeste's father finally glanced my way, and I saw recognition, not of me, but of the kind of obstacle I might become. I had been too frightened to challenge that tone in my first life. This time, I turned to the 31 students behind me. Everyone whose grade appeared on the screen should write down exactly what they saw before leaving, I said. Include the time, the account name, the pending changes, and the spreadsheet headings. Email it to yourselves and someone outside the university. Counsel's face sharpened. Do not interfere with witnesses. I am not telling anyone what to say. I am telling them not to forget. Isaac immediately opened his notebook. Priya followed. Then Miriam. One by one, keyboards began clicking. Celeste's mother whispered something furious to her husband. Dean Marlowe raised both hands. No evidence will be suppressed. I met his eyes. Then preserving independent recollections should not concern you. For 3 seconds, nobody moved. Then Professor Hale walked to the lectern and wrote the exact time of the discovery on the whiteboard. My recollection begins at 11:16 a.m., he said. The entire class copied it. That was the moment the case stopped belonging to the university alone. Celeste had planned to trap one quiet girl inside a private process. Instead, she had committed her crime before a room full of witnesses who had just learned that silence could be graded too. By evening, the story was online despite the university's warning. Celeste posted first. She uploaded a photograph of herself outside a clinic with red eyes and a bandage around her wrist, though no one had injured her. Her caption said she had suffered a panic attack after discovering that a trusted classmate used her family connection to access confidential systems. She did not name me, but she did not need to. Anonymous accounts flooded the cohort forum with claims that I had been jealous of her scholarship position, stalked her cousin, and rehearsed the classroom exposure to hide my own hacking. Someone leaked an old video of me arguing with a customer at the grocery store after he called me a slur. The clip began after his insult and ended before the manager defended me. The caption called me volatile. The pattern was identical to my first life, only faster. This time, however, I knew the purpose of the noise. Celeste did not need everyone to believe her. She needed enough confusion that the university could call the truth disputed. I borrowed my brother's phone, logged into a fresh document, and built a timeline. Monday, 5:42 p.m., Celeste offered the laptop. Monday, 5:47, disappearing password message preserved in notifications. Wednesday, 2:14 a.m., remote session recorded. Wednesday, 8:47, remote connection from cafe network. Wednesday, 11:16, portal discovered in class. I listed witnesses beside each event and added only facts I could prove.
No insults. No speculation.
Then I sent it to the independent student advocate, the scholarship ombudsman, and a journalist who had previously reported on university data breaches. I did not post it publicly. Public fights reward the person most willing to lie every hour. Evidence rewards patience. At 9:03 p.m., an unknown number called. I answered without speaking. Adrian Vale's voice came through in a whisper. You need to stop pushing this. I turned on my brother's recorder and placed his phone beside mine.
Why? I asked.
Because you don't understand who is involved. I understand your account changed grades. Celeste used my login. I didn't know what she was doing. Then tell the investigators. He laughed once, without humor. Her father got me the job. He got half the registrar's team appointed. If I talk, I'm finished. You are already finished. Silence. Then he said, the account wasn't supposed to stay open. She was meant to close it before class. There it was. Not a confession to everything, but a blade slipped through Celeste's story. I kept my voice neutral. Why was it open at all? She said she only needed to flag anomalies. Using a price spreadsheet? His breathing changed. You saw that. 32 people saw it.
He swore.
In the background, a door slammed. Listen to me. The grades are the smallest part. Search for Project Lantern. The call ended. 10 seconds later, the number disconnected permanently. I sat in the dark holding 2 phones, my skin prickling. Celeste had framed me for grade hacking in my first life, and I had assumed that was the whole crime. Project Lantern told me I had only seen the doorway. The next morning, my official student portal locked me out. A red banner read access suspended pending security review. For 1 second, both lives overlapped. I was back in my mother's kitchen, refreshing the same screen while she pretended not to cry. Then an email arrived from Dean Marlowe stating that the suspension was a neutral protective measure applied to several accounts. I checked with Priya. Hers worked. Isaac's worked. Celeste's profile had disappeared from the student directory, but Tessa's remained active. The neutral measure applied only to me. I forwarded the message to the student advocate, then searched everything I had captured for the phrase Project Lantern. The classroom video had spread among students before phones were collected, and Miriam sent me a still image of the hidden spreadsheet. At the bottom were tabs labeled Payments, Appeals, Lantern, and Archive. Lantern had not been open, but the title was enough. My first life appeal file flashed in my memory, an internal phrase I had dismissed because I did not understand it. Lantern review complete, candidate risk resolved. At the time, I thought it referred to cybersecurity. Now I searched my old cloud backups. Death had returned my body, not erased the habits of the girl I had been. I still used the same email, and years ago I had automatically saved every case document. The memo was there. Project Lantern was a scholarship, integrity initiative created by Graham Arden. Officially, it identified application fraud. In practice, it gave foundation donors access to private academic, financial, and disciplinary data so they could remove scholarship recipients considered reputational risks. Poor students who complained publicly, international students who challenged fees, and candidates competing with donor-connected applicants were flagged. Celeste's grade scheme was not merely personal cheating. It fed Project Lantern. By lowering targeted grades or creating misconduct evidence, she gave the foundation a clean reason to eliminate people without exposing donor interference. My name had been labeled final because my expulsion was supposed to be a demonstration that the system worked. I sent the memo, the recorded call, and the screenshot to the journalist. At noon, the university issued a statement denying any connection between the classroom incident and scholarship decisions. At 12:07, the journalist replied with 4 words, "They know you know." At 12:19, my mother called. A man claiming to be from the university had told her I was under criminal investigation and might lose my housing. Her voice shook as she asked whether she needed to sell anything. I gripped the edge of my desk until my fingers hurt. In my first life, I had protected her by lying until the lies collapsed. This time I told her enough truth to let her stand beside me. "Mom, I did not hack anything. Someone tried to frame me, and I caught them. They may say frightening things because they want me quiet." She was silent, then said, "Are you quiet?" "No." "Good," she replied. "Neither am I." The independent hearing was scheduled for Friday, only 48 hours after the discovery. Celeste arrived through a private entrance with 2 lawyers. I arrived through the front doors with my mother, Professor Hale, the student advocate, and 21 classmates carrying written witness statements. Cameras crowded the pavement because the Project Lantern article had been published that morning. The headline did not name Celeste. It asked why a donor-led foundation had access to confidential student risk profiles. That was more dangerous. A scandal about one dishonest student could be expelled. A scandal about a system could spread upward. Inside the hearing room, the panel chair explained that the session would address only the unauthorized grade access, not broader scholarship allegations. Celeste's lawyer immediately argued that the laptop evidence was contaminated because I had possessed the device for 2 days and deliberately recorded it. He described me as technically skilled, financially desperate, and fixated on academic competition. My mother's hand tightened around mine, but I kept my eyes on the panel. Then the lawyer produced a surprise witness, Adrian Vale. He entered in a gray suit, avoided looking at me, and swore that I had contacted him through an encrypted account, offered money for his credentials, and threatened to expose his relationship with Celeste if he refused. Celeste bowed her head as if the testimony hurt her. It was a polished resurrection of the original frame. The panel displayed screenshots of messages allegedly sent by an account named Lantern Girl. The sender wrote, "I'll use Celeste's laptop, so the audit points away from me." For the first time since rebirth, fear entered me cleanly. Those messages had not existed in my first life. Celeste was adapting. She had realized digital proof defeated performance, so she manufactured digital proof. The chair asked whether the account was mine. No, Celeste's lawyer smiled. Convenient. My advocate requested the underlying metadata, not screenshots. The lawyer said the platform automatically deleted metadata. Also convenient, I said. The chair warned me not to interrupt. Adrian testified that he enabled the grade portal under pressure and then tried to stop me. Celeste's messages, log out now, were presented as proof she was warning him. Her phone, suddenly available for review, contained a carefully edited conversation supporting the story. Tessa's original thread had vanished from the university evidence summary because, we were told, her device backup was corrupted. Piece by piece, I watched the machine rebuild itself around me. Then Professor Hale leaned toward my advocate and whispered something. She stood. We request that the witness state the exact time Nora Lynn first contacted him. Adrian answered. Monday at 6:10 p.m. Professor Hale opened the attendance system. At 6:10 p.m. on Monday, Ms. Lynn was presenting in my evening research seminar. Her phone was connected to the lectern for screen sharing, and the session recording shows her continuously from 6:02 until 6:27. Celeste's lawyer replied that I could have scheduled the message. Then the witness could not have received the live voice call he described at 6:12, Professor Hale said. Adrian froze. He had added the call to make the story vivid. The detail broke it. My advocate did not celebrate. She walked Adrian through his statement 1 minute at a time. He claimed I contacted him Monday evening, yet his phone records showed no incoming encrypted call because he had refused to submit the device. He claimed he had never authorized Celeste, yet the portal required mobile approval from his registered phone at 10:42 p.m. He claimed the remote access came from me, yet the cafe network placed Celeste's tablet at the source at 8:47 the next morning. He claimed her messages were warnings, yet the earliest preserved notification on Tessa's phone said, Adrian says the audit will tag her IP. The panel chair asked why that message was absent from the university summary. Counsel blamed a processing error. The journalist's article was open on several observers' tablets. Everyone knew what processing error meant now. Then Leila Moreno entered with the forensic report. She had made a duplicate image of the laptop before senior administrators attempted to transfer the evidence. The remote access software stored more than device names. It stored a cryptographic certificate issued to Celeste's tablet 6 months earlier, plus a history of connections from her home network, her phone hotspot, and the foundation office. The hidden spreadsheet had been created under Celeste's personal cloud account. Deleted versions contained her full name in the author field. The price list included payment references matching transfers into an account controlled by Tessa, who had collected money and passed most of it to Celeste. Most damaging of all, the laptop microphone had automatically cached short audio clips whenever remote access began. Leila played one from 10:43 p.m. Celeste's voice filled the hearing room. Raise Nora enough to make greed obvious. Lower the other 3. Dad says the committee needs a clean pattern. Adrian's voice answered. This is the last one. Celeste did not bow her head this time. She stared straight at me. Her mother closed her eyes. Graham Arden stood abruptly and demanded the recording be excluded as an invasion of privacy. The panel chair told him to sit. He refused. Security moved closer. Then Celeste laughed. It began as a breath and grew into something brittle. You all act horrified, she said, looking around the room. Half this university runs on favors. I just stopped pretending merit was real. Her lawyer touched her arm, but she pulled away. Nora would have taken the scholarship and forgotten everyone beneath her. Priya would have done the same. They worship grades because they think numbers make them good. My father showed me how decisions are actually made. Graham said her name in warning. She turned on him. Don't. You told me to fix the rankings. You said lantern candidates were replaceable. The hearing room erupted. Cameras were prohibited inside, but dozens of witnesses heard her. This time, no private committee could rewrite the moment. Celeste's final attempt was not to deny the hacking. It was to make me responsible for her becoming the kind of person who did it. She asked to address me directly before the panel adjourned. My advocate advised against it, But I agreed because I remembered every night in my first life when I had imagined asking her why. Celeste stood across from me with no tears left and said, "You always made everything a competition."
I almost laughed.
She continued, "You came here with your tragic scholarship story, and everyone praised you for working twice as hard. Do you know what it is like to have people assume every achievement came from your father? I was first in the cohort before you arrived. Then every professor used you as an example. You made me invisible. So you changed grades. I corrected an imbalance. You sold marks. People were already buying access through tutors, donations, recommendations. I made it measurable. You framed me." Her face tightened. "Because you would never stop. Even if I beat you once, you would appeal. You would investigate. You would make people look at the process." There was the purest truth she had spoken. I had not been selected because I was weak. I had been selected because I was difficult to permanently discourage. In my first life, that knowledge would have sounded like blame. In this one, it sounded like proof of who I had always been. "You're right," I said. I would have kept looking. Celeste leaned closer. "And now what? You think they will love you for exposing them? They will use you for a headline, restore your grades, and wait for you to become inconvenient again." The room quieted because even the people who hated her knew that part might be true. I looked at Dean Marlowe, at counsel, at the panel, at the classmates whose records had been treated like tokens. "Then I'll keep copies," I said. "I'll keep witnesses. I'll keep asking in rooms where they cannot erase the question." Celeste's expression flickered. She had expected rage, triumph, perhaps cruelty. She did not know what to do with a future she could no longer script. The panel suspended her and Tessa immediately, revoked Adrian's system access, and referred all three to law enforcement. Graham Arden was removed from the Foundation pending an external investigation into Project Lantern. Dean Marlowe announced that every grade change made through Adrian's account would be audited and all scholarship decisions connected to Lantern would be reviewed by an outside body. My portal access was restored before I left the building. When I logged in, my statistics mark was 78, the mark I had earned, not the 94 Celeste had tried to plant. I stared at it until my mother asked whether something was wrong. "No," I said, and began to cry. "It's mine." A year after the hearing, I returned to Professor Hale's classroom as a graduate assistant. By then, Celeste had been expelled and charged over the breach and fraud. Adrian had admitted enabling the backdoor, and Graham Arden had been removed from the Foundation, while an external audit reopened hundreds of grades and 11 scholarship cases. The desks had been replaced, the projector upgraded, and the university had added a bright notice beside every lectern explaining how to report unauthorized system access. On my first day, a student approached before class carrying a borrowed laptop. She said her friend had left a strange staff page open and asked whether she should close it. For one heartbeat, fluorescent lights became headlights, rain struck invisible pavement, and I saw Celeste leaning toward me with that perfect smile. Then the room settled into the present. "Don't touch anything," I told the student. "Set it down. We'll preserve what's there." Professor Hale, listening from the doorway, gave me a small nod. The account turned out to be harmless, a training portal left open by a tutor, but we documented it anyway. After class, the student apologized for overreacting. I told her caution was not overreaction when someone else expected her silence. That evening, I walked past the glass study center that no longer carried the Arden family name. Students filled every floor, arguing over equations, sharing chargers, borrowing laptops, living ordinary lives inside a building once used to control them. My reflection moved beside me in the dark glass. The same face Celeste had watched at the hearing, but no longer the same woman who died reading a rejection email in the rain. I used to think rebirth meant I had been sent back to punish her. It did not. Punishment was only one consequence of truth arriving before the lie was ready. I had been sent back to return something properly. Not the laptop. Not the planted grade. I returned the shame that never belonged to me, the doubt that had been placed in my mother's voice, the years my brother surrendered, the future a committee stamped closed. I returned all of it to the people who created it, and I kept what was mine. My work, my name, my stubbornness, my second chance. The first time I handed Celeste her laptop, she closed the evidence and opened the door to my ruin. The second time, I lifted it in the middle of class and asked one careful question. That question stayed open longer than her hacking account did. It opened her messages, her cousin's access, her father's project, the foundation's files, and every locked decision they thought money could keep private. Celeste had built her plan around the belief that I would be embarrassed to make a scene. She was right about the old me, but I had already died once for being quiet. In my second life, when her crime remained logged in for the whole class to see, I did not scream, threaten, or beg anyone to believe me. I simply refused to close the screen.